Good morning. It is Friday, March 1st, 2024, and today is day 52 of the 2024 legislative session. So we are in the final week coming into it of the legislative session. So a lot of action is going to happen over the next few days. Crossover day was this past Wednesday, so any bills that did not make it out of their house of origin at this point are done. They're over, cannot continue to be considered, with the exception of the budget bills. However, budget bills, one has crossed from the Senate, and House Finance is quickly making its way through the project or process. There are a number of bills that House Judiciary is taking up this morning of some interest. Senate Bill 590 is commonly known as the preemption bill. And what this bill would do, as it came over from the Senate, is basically forbid cities from creating their own wage and hour regulations, their own labor regulations, setting their own minimum wage, and so forth, just to make sure that those types of things are standardized across the state and easy for the business community to understand. The committee is also this morning taking up two bills basically relating to the doxing of individuals. Senate Bill 637, which is further down the agenda, would basically forbid doxing of individuals in the state of West Virginia. That's where personal information is shared that could lead to a security issue. Senate Bill 477 in particular would prohibit doxing of healthcare workers. There have been a few incidents that have arisen over the past number of years where doctors, nurses, and so forth have had their personal information shared online in an effort to cause people to put pressure on them, make threats against them, and so forth. So those bills are both up in House Judiciary and obviously have cleared the Senate. The big issue that I want to talk to you today about is Senate Bill 841, and that is the unemployment bill. This is going to require a little bit of explanation. Back in 2009, during the Great Recession, there was a negotiation that took place about the unemployment insurance fund. And at that time, there were those organized labor that were concerned that the unemployment insurance fund was starting to drop down, and so that changes needed to be made to ensure the stability of the fund. There were negotiations with then Governor Manchin, organized labor, the business community, and these took place at a time where the Democrats had a supermajority in both the House and the Senate. What came out of that was a legislation that set the wage base for employers at $12,000. And it also froze the weekly benefit rates for those on unemployment at a maximum of $424, which was triggered at the about $40,150 level. So if you made $40,150 or more, then you were eligible for the max weekly benefit, which was then frozen at $424. The wage base of $12,000, that's the amount of of an employee's wages that an employer will pay unemployment insurance on up to that point, and then everything beyond that they don't pay. Now, various employers will pay different amounts based on their experience rating. But the part of that compromise that took place was that when the unemployment insurance fund reached a balance of $220 million, it would trigger the wage base to go down to $9,000. But it also did a couple of things. When it triggered it to go $9,000, it essentially untethered the wage base, and it also untethered the weekly benefits. Because of the adjustments in the scale, weekly benefits have quickly jumped up to a current of maximum of $662 per week. And the wage base was last year, in 2023, it was $9,000. This year, it is $9,521. And that's because that wage base is now tied to increases or decreases percentage-wise in the state's average annual wage. And that is calculated by Workforce West Virginia based on information provided by employers who were paying into the unemployment insurance fund. Right now, the projections are that absent any action, that the wage base for employers is likely to jump into the range of $10,500 or $10,600 beginning January 1 of 2025. So if nothing were to occur, if nothing passes, we are projected to see an increase in the wage base up to that point. That is a significant increase on the business community. So with that background in mind, the Senate passed out a bill on Wednesday that made some changes to unemployment. First, what it did is it would change the maximum weekly amount. So currently, you can stay on unemployment for 26 weeks. It would compress that down to 24 weeks. And then it would do a monthly compression. So right now, it would start at a higher amount on the first month. And then after the second month, it would come down to, I believe, what is the current rate. And then it would continue sliding down a little bit until that unemployment was exhausted. The goal being, from the Senate's perspective, to get people to go back to work. Another component is that right now, if you are on unemployment and you take part-time work, you will lose those benefits. This bill would allow people to take part-time work without losing their benefits, provided that the amount they bring home and pay does not exceed their weekly benefit. So it does allow individuals to go in and work. The bill would also freeze the wage base at $10,000. So that is a little bit higher than what it currently is. We are currently looking right now, working with the House to see, is that 10,000 really necessary, or could it be a little bit lower? Could we lock that wage base in, say, $9,500 or lower? And part of that is looking at what is in the fund right now. The unemployment insurance fund has in the range of $380 to $400 million. Again, that amount will fluctuate a little bit, but that's the neighborhood it's in. We think that is probably more than enough, a lot more than enough in the fund. So those are all things that we're looking at right now, but unemployment insurance has moved out of the Senate and is over in the House right now. So those negotiations continue to go on, trying to get that data, trying to get a better understanding of what would be possible. But that is a bill that I really wanted to bring to your attention and give a little bit of an explanation for, just to help people understand. It is a complicated issue. The formulas that go into it are complicated. So that's one we continue to watch. Again, we're heading into the final week. Next Saturday is the final day, March 9th. At midnight, it's done. Now, with it related to the budget, we are expecting to see a special session sometime in May. News broke yesterday publicly that the state is facing a very serious clawback situation from the federal government based on COVID money. The governor's office is continuing to work with the federal government to find out what that number is. But at now, it looks like we may have to spend up to about an additional $465 million in public education, or be forced to return an even larger sum of money to the federal government. So because of that, a lot of surplus funding, things that are in the back of the budget, surplus items, they're being left out this year during the general session. And the state's going to be looking to get through the income tax season, working with the federal government, and likely, or very likely, come back in May and then finish up the budget and make some final changes, just due to the uncertainty that is out there right now surrounding the budget. So again, heading into the final week, as always, feel free to reach out to me. My email address is bdayton, BDAYTON @wvchamber.com. Appreciate, all the feedback. A lot of people are watching these updates, and so we appreciate that. And again, thank you for your continued support of the West Virginia Chamber of Commerce, and have a great weekend.